Kenneth Okonkwo is simply an actor. An actor is one who plays any assigned role after a haggles.
He's playing a script. Is that what you're saying?
Clearly. The only difference is that he has changed stage. Mr. Peter Obi is somebody that the government of the day does not want to be on the ballot. How do I mean? Saturday, March 7th, we joined Mr. Peter Obi to his village in Aguru to get registered, because you only become a member of a political party upon registration. As soon as Mr. Peter Obi registered on the 7th, I registered in my village on the 8th. Less than 1 week from that date, the case filed by Nofiu Bala on September 12, 2025 was suddenly resurrected and given accelerated hearing. Now my question is, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, former vice president of our dear country, with all due respect, had registered in the ADC since last year. Why didn't the courts suddenly become, efficient and effective in disposing of the case? But as soon as Mr. Peter Obi registered, I'm speaking to facts. I want people to contradict me.
This is Niger Unfiltered on SYMFONI TV. My name is Olawale Oluwade, and my guest today is Honorable Afam Ogene, member of the 10th National Assembly, representing Aguru Federal Constituency of Anambra State. Honorable, nice to have you on the show.
It's my pleasure, Wale. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And without further ado, let's get right into our conversation. Mr. Peter Obi, 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate, of course, former governor of Anambra State, moved from the ADC to the NDC a little over a week ago. How did this news come to you, and what's your reaction to it?
Well, the news did not come to me. I was part of the making of that news.
Oh, interesting.
Because in 2011, I happened to have come to the House of Representatives under the auspices of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, the same platform upon which Mr. Peter Obi was governor at the time. So after my first tenure, there was an 8-year hiatus, during which I was still engaged with some of the beneath the scene politicking in the National Assembly. But by 2023, I ran elections again to the House of Representatives, this time under the Labour Party. I could say that I was headhunted because I was one of those Mr. Peter Obi invited to be part of his 2023 train. And then we got into office by the grace of God, and I dare say the popularity of Mr. Peter Obi at the time. And shortly afterwards, the crisis in the Labour Party set in because of the fact that Mr. Julius Abure, Barrister Julius Abure, who was national chairman, wanted another tenure, which was okay, but he didn't want to go about it the right way. Congresses are conducted from bottom up, but he felt that he needed to protect himself, so he should have the national convention first and put himself and a few of his followers in office. And some of us thought that, well, the party was growing larger, and so suggested that the space should be made open for others to come in, but he preferred to still work under the conscripted level that they were at the time. And being the caucus leader of the Labour Party caucus in the House of Representatives, some of us did not agree with that. And before we knew it, other external factors came into play. And that was what happened. So coming to the movement from Labour to ADC and on to the NDC now, a lot of Nigerians, I know that some realize, but some others on the same opposition coalition with us, may have overlooked the fact that Mr. Peter Obi, after 2023, symbolized the opposition. He remained active, not just staying outside the country, but within, and moving from state to state, doing what he knows best, reaching out to the ordinary people, and then using his X platforms and other handles to speak on issues, that the government was not handling quite well. And so he became the #1 target of the government of the day, who felt that he must not be allowed to be on the ballot for the 2027 elections. So with all of that in mind, we knew that we had to be a step or two ahead of them if really we were to be on the ballot.
Even though you've not quite answered why, or if you were anyway, you said you are not surprised. You are even part of those who took that decision.
Yes.
But
if you want to know why, I could expatiate. I thought I was speaking too long.
We'll get to it. Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo, you know him, I guess.
He's my friend.
He has come out very strongly to denounce the exit of Mr. Peter Obi from the ADC. And he has made very strong comments, about Mr. Peter Obi. He says that move is dishonest, that the reasons Mr. Peter Obi adduced, toxicity in the ADC, internal wranglings, all of that. Kenneth Okonkwo says Peter Obi has been dishonest about the movement, that all the stories he gave does not quite add up, And he further alleged that Peter Obi has an intense fear of contesting primaries. How do you respond?
Well, like I said, Kenneth Okonkwo is my friend. I hope he still considers me as one after this interview. But you and I know that Kenneth Okonkwo is simply an actor. An actor is one who plays any assigned role after a hard.
He's playing a script. Is that what you're saying?
Clearly. The only difference is that he has changed stage. He was acting in Nollywood. Now he has moved over to the political.
Are you being fair to Mr. Kenneth? A lawyer.
He studied law. Lawyer. He studied law in between. But he's more. I don't think that he's known for the cases he has taken up in court. He's better known for his role as Andy in Living in Bondage 1993.
Are you being fair to
Mr.
Okonkwo?
For any actor, you need to haggle a fee. And once the fee is right, you play your role. So he's not acting out of character. He's acting within character. So I don't see the strong views that he has expressed. I told you earlier in my first reply to your initial question that Mr. Peter Obi is somebody that the government of the day does not want to be on the ballot. How do I mean? On April 4, 2025, the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, gave a landmark judgment which clearly stated that the tenure of Barrister Julius Abure as national chairman of the Labour Party was effectively over. I was among those, along with Mr. Peter Obi, Governor Alex Oti, senators, House members, and other stakeholders of the party that took certified true copy of that judgment to INEC in case they had not seen it. And we were told that they would study it. They kept studying it from April until Mr. Peter Obi left the party. Of course, we are also around and we have our ears close to the ground because the INEC people had stated that they were under instructions not to release the party for as long as Mr. Peter Obi remained there. So on December 31st, 2025, almost 8 months afterwards, Mr. Peter Obi, now frustrated with the shenanigans happening with the Labour Party, announced a move to the African Democratic Congress. Guess what? 4 days later, INEC, without any compulsion, issued a statement that the tenure of Julius Abure was effectively over. Why did it take 8 months to come to that conclusion? Then, fast forward to ADC. Remember I said he made an indication in Enugu, I was there too, that we would be joining the African Democratic Congress. All of January, 30 or 31 days, nothing happened. All of February, nothing happened. Then on March 7th, Saturday, March 7th, we joined Mr. Peter Obi to his village in Aguru to get registered, because you only become a member of a political party upon registration. As soon as Mr. Peter Obi registered on the 7th, I registered in my village on the 8th. Less than 1 week from that date, the case filed by Nofiu Bala on September 12, 2025, was suddenly resurrected and given accelerated hearing. Now my question is, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, former vice president of our dear country, with all due respect, had registered in the ADC since last year. Why didn't the courts suddenly become, efficient and effective in disposing of the case? But as soon as Mr. Peter Obi registered, I'm speaking to facts. I want people to contradict me. I'd like to know what happened in January, what happened in February, until March 7. And before March 15, the case came up alive. And what we are now told was status quo ante bellum, which INEC interpreted to its whims, showing that they were still after one man. In such an environment, it is only a tree in the part of the country I come from that you will tell that you cut it down and it remains standing. Else, the next thing to do is to know how to, in this case, further your political career. And if the space is constricted, then you have to move. But that's not the only reason. You join a political party believing that there are certain irreducible minimums. We also say in our parts that you do not, in a bid to save your mother, push your father to the ground. That's sacrilegious. This is a country made up of diverse ethnic, religious divides. And so it's a give and take. The convention that every political player has come to agree with is the fact that power should rotate between the North and the South. And remember that just about 4 years earlier, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and his PDP insisted, after 8 years of former President Muhammadu Buhari, for power to still remain in the South, which was the whole essence of the quarrel between now Minister Nwike and Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And we all saw the results. So now that power is in the South, brought about by even people like former Governor Nasiru El-Rufai, who are Northerners. He had to mobilize other Northern governors to insist that power should devolve to the South in keeping with that convention. So why would Atiku Abubakar insist? It's his right, personal right. So for us in the ADC, we already had a David Mark as chairman of the party. And if Atiku Abubakar was going to run and probably emerge as presidential candidate, then we are doing the same thing a second time. And how do you expect a different result? So these are some of the key issues surrounding the sojourn in the ADC.
Your first explanation why Peter Obi left is that, you said he's a target of the ruling party and the government.
Yeah, and that's still bogged down by the court.
Just hold on that, and that he's the face of the opposition.
Yeah.
Many will argue.
Okay.
And then, in fact, beyond that argument is Peter Obi not safe within the coalition? In the neck of the wood where I come from, there's a proverb that if you remove a stick of broom from the bunch, it is easier to break it. But when it is within the bunch, and nobody can break a bunch of broom, it's not possible. But remove one, is Peter Obi not better off, number one, in the coalition? Because it takes that coalition to defeat this behemoth, the APC and the government. How do you respond to that?
Well, I do not agree with you. On the texture of your statement, you're correct. But in reality, the current circumstances we are in, that bunch of broom is the Nigerian people. It is not a collection of key political players. It's the Nigerian people. And it's the Nigerian people that are going to vote. And it is now an election, not between Mr. Peter Obi and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It is an election between the current administration and inflation, insecurity, high petrol prices, general downturn in standards of living. So Mr. Peter Obi only happens to symbolize the march. Somebody will lead the march. Somebody will be put forward. And you and I know that he's almost like a patron saint of the Nigerian youth and women. And these are the critical segments of the voting public. So it is not by aligning with the old establishment order. While they are very important, much more important is the place and hope of Nigerians going forward.
Okay. Back to this point of Mr. Peter Obi not being afraid. That's what some have said. He's afraid of competition. In his trajectory, political trajectory, he has never, in fact, at the first attempt for the governorship, he squared off against Mr. Ralph Nwosu and lost Abga in Anambra. And if you plot his graph, political graph, up until today, he has never participated in a contested primary. He always finds a way to meander through. Can anybody be trusted for power at the highest level if you're afraid of political contestation?
First, a correction. He never lost to Ralph Nwosu. Ralph Nwosu is not known to have flown the flag of any party in any gubernatorial contest in Anambra State. Yes, there were some issues, but it didn't boil down to losing. By what votes?
Let me comment
yes.
this briefly, if you don't mind. They contested the primary. But then,
that's news to
Peter
me.
Obi,
I'd like to know.
Peter Obi went to the great man, Dim Ojumeku, Nkemba, Ojuku, and prevailed on him, who found his way into his heart. The man called Ralph Nwosu to step down and handed the ticket to Peter Obi. Are you saying that is not correct?
No, but that should tell you something. If he went to late leader Dim Ojuku and he found him worthy to represent Abga, then that should tell you something about the man.
Yes.
But to answer your question, Mr. Peter Obi is not a training material.
How do you mean?
Mr. Peter Obi plays in the Champions League. And for you to play in the Champions League, you must have been a local champion, first and foremost. Those who have won primaries, what have they done with it?
Yes.
Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is known to have participated in primaries over and about 7 election cycles. And what has been the result? So it is not about primaries. Do you know why consensus is written into the Constitution? When you see a good and sellable candidate, you don't need to put that candidate at the mercy of delegates who are only after what they can get at that particular time, not thinking of the main election. That's why I say it's not a training material. And Mr. Peter Obi lives true to his principles. Why would he go and bribe people to put him forward to represent them? Instead, he prefers to use that same money doing good, going around schools, hospitals, erecting infrastructure. Is that not better than sharing it on the political turf? So it's not about winning primaries. We know people who win primaries and have trade-offs. At the end of the day, it comes to naught.
I mean, this is news to me, and I would love to study more from your own school of,
I'm still here.
Buhari, late President Muhammadu Buhari.
Yes.
I think is in the recent history of Nigeria has the largest following of fanatical, devoted followers. Yeah. He's always got about 10, 12 million votes, But then he could not win the presidential ticket. So there was a marriage and all of that between the parties. Guess what? They did not hand him over. They did not hand him the ticket of the APC 2015 on a platter. He contested. Asiwaju Tinubu, 2022-23, contested APC primaries and won. Now, what they did with the victory is a different kettle of fish, but they contested and won. Why is Mr. Peter Obi afraid of primaries? And like I said, this is news to me.
I'm not sure you even belong to our political party. Fine. So I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the political parties that see something in him. Yeah. They ought to put him forward. Now, thank God you're a journalist, so you watch the event, not as a participant, a little far detached. You saw late Muhammadu Buhari emerge at the Lagos Convention. Incidentally, I'm also a foundation member of the APC. In fact, one of those who scaled defense of the National Assembly in defense of democracy in 2014. So I was at that Lagos conference, that convention that produced Muhammadu Buhari, during which Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and some others participated. Now, you also set the stage by saying he had fanatical followers, about 10, 12 million people, but he never became president. He never became president because there was no handshake across the Niger. Now, what you saw in that primaries was the manifestation of an agreement with key political players from the Southwest and the Southeast to support his candidature. That's a different kettle of fish. It was agreed at the time that it was the turn of the North. It was the turn of the North. A few Southerners did put themselves forward. But when politicians have an agreement, because it's not a written agreement, if you insist on exercising your right to contest, you are allowed. But everybody, you barely get up to 1/20th of the votes. The key people in that primaries were the North. And Mr. Peter Obi is not saying give him the ticket free. Make the pronouncement, as has been made elsewhere, including Buhari benefiting from it, that it is the turn of the South. He didn't even say zone it to Southeast. Just agree to that is the turn of the South. Then whosoever wants to contest from the South should come along. How come we ended up with 2 Southwest presidential candidates in 1999? You think it was their making? It was because we needed healing. We needed unity arising from the Abiola fiasco. And that is why the country, so for such a country, why won't a country like ours also bend backwards to look at the Southeast that has not had any occupant in Aso Rock since it was built? The last person from the Southeast to come close to the pinnacle of power was the late Alex Ekwueme in 1979. And by then, the federal capital was still in Lagos. Since we built Aso Rock and came over, close to 40 years, and you think there cannot be an affirmative action, we are not asking for frisbees, but to say, yes, this is your turn, go struggle for it. I don't think that is asking for too much.
Now, this exit of Mr. Peter Obi and Kwankwaso to the NDC, as the exit, has it energized the opposition? The exit of Peter Obi to NDC, thereby rupturing the ADC coalition, has it energized the opposition?
Well, the coalition is not ruptured yet. I will come to that, but let me take the first stanza of the question. I thought you should be telling me, you are in this country. Since Sunday, the 3rd of May, 2026, the opposition has come alive with thousands of persons joining the NDC. I don't know how many fresh persons have joined the ADC. It is not a question of really. I joined.
I'm even happy you are saying thousands because some of your
No. I'm talking about the key political players. I'm not talking about the membership. And that was where I was leading up to. I defected. My letter was read on the floor on the Tuesday, 5th of May. And to even register, it took me 2 days. I don't think that was the situation before Mr. Peter Obi and Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso joined. So that should tell you, the influx of Nigerians to that platform. And if you want to be truthful, as you have indulged me to be as a Christian, I assume that you're also one. If you are not, we all worship the Supreme Being. If you're also truthful to yourself, go on Facebook, which is not controlled by me or you, and then do a content analysis and see the number of people. It got so crazy that some people said that even if Mr. Peter Obi was going to a birthday party or a CWO, which means Christian Women Organization Party, that they will follow him. So I don't know how much he gave to these people, to be taking this stance. Okay. Then about the coalition, remember that we are in Ibadan, and the whole essence of a coalition is not to come up with just one presidential candidate. It is to have a working agreement. A time will come, the elections might go into a second round of voting. But even before that, close to the elections, the key opposition figures might meet, and I know they will meet. Nobody is quarreling with anybody. We have just disagreed on the way forward, on the route to take. Some people say, well, we can stay here and rough it out in the courts. And some others felt that it will be class suicide, like happened in Zamfara State. And remember, the INEC chairman had warned over that. So for a case to be returned from the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court, to the High Court, to begin de novo, when are they going to conclude that case? So after all the struggles, after millions of Nigerians have invested hope in a particular candidate, now the courts will now say, pull the rug from under their feet and say, you didn't do ABC at the outset. So we didn't need to wait for that.
The Nafiu Bala issue that created the huge furore against ADC seems to have quietened after the Supreme Court pulled the rugs under their feet, largely, because the court said, go back and start all afresh, remove the antebellum, the mischief of the INEC. But that issue, because Honorable Adejide has decamped from, and is a major backer of Nafiu, because he's seen the light. But that issue did not threaten you.
No, he's not a major backer. The presidency is the major backer.
Okay. That issue did not even threaten you personally, as it did Mr. Peter Obi, if we're going to consider that to him as an argument. So why did you leave? Is it safe to say that the reason why you're latching on to Mr. Peter Obi is for personal interest?
First, you said the case of Nafiu Bala seems to have quietened. On the contrary, it's more intricate. The last time they were in court, Nafiu Bala said the judge should recluse himself and that the matter should be taken to another court. That's elongation of time. So the case is still there. You talked about Umar Ado. The registration of NDC, unknown to many people, began in 2017. But Umar Ado, who attempted to register the ADA, thought that they were all being registered at the same time. And so he felt, why would this be registered and this not registered? I'm not a lawyer, but by our training, we know 18 or 2 about everything. I do know that if you're not going to suffer personal injury from a particular act, you don't even have the locus to talk about it. You should be suing INEC, asking INEC, why didn't they register them? It is not an ADC matter. As you speak, NDC is free from all litigations. However, that's not to say that should anyone arise, that we are not capable of tackling it. Then asking that I do not have any personal grudge with Nafiu. We are a team. And that's why I clearly laid out that in my first incarnation in the National Assembly House of Reps, I was on the same platform with Mr. Peter Obi. I don't know how many times you have asked my brothers from the Southwest, how come they have stuck like glue to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu? Couldn't they have won elections on their own? For every member of the P2B team that you mention, I will mention 10 politicians that are stuck to Bola Ahmed Tinubu and who have not won elections on their own accord. So what's wrong if I decide to adopt Mr. P2B as my leader, as I have clearly done since I began my politics? Even at the time that I moved over to APC, I was still in touch with him. And that tells you the kind of leader he is. He's not a leader that pigeonholes anybody. Remember that we are 35 that came to the House of Representatives under the Labour Party. At the end of the day, only 12 remained. In last week alone, 5 of them made moves to come back. In fact, resigning and registering for NDC. Did he go to pull them by the bootstraps or by the collars of their neck? So I don't know why people did to key political figures. You know those who are with the late Muhammadu Buhari and won elections in his name. I'd be proud to win elections in the name of Mr. P2B. So we are not scared about that. But what I'm saying, I've never heard any journalists raise these issues with the other key. Even we know about Musa Kwankwaso and his Kwankwasia movement. There are people who have followed him all the way through. What's wrong in following Mr. Peter Obi?
Okay. So you cannot stand as your old man?
Why can't I stand? I told you I went to APC. At that time, didn't I stand as my own man?
But you didn't get anything.
I didn't get anything.
Yes. And that's why you came back to 2020.
No, that's not true. I told you I was headhunted. Maybe you missed the grammar. I told you I was headhunted. In the APC, at least I was governing board member. To tell you that I was also one of the players, I was governing board member of a federal agency.
The NDC, quite controversially, came out boldly to say this rotation to the south is just for 4 years. And many have argued, and I want to align my thoughts with them, that the reason why Rabiu Kwankwaso is joining the ADC is because he sees that a short route to the presidency, to having a shot at the presidential ticket in 2031. To the southeast extraction, is that fair?
Incidentally, you are speaking with the man who moved that historic motion. I moved that motion.
Historic.
Very historic. And that reinforces our position. That is not about self, it's about country. First, what Nigeria needs today is national healing, unity, togetherness. That's the only way we can fight poverty. That's the only way we can fight insecurity. And then, if the North, I told you and mentioned some key players who insisted against the run of play, against the decision of the then sitting president and their region, that power should come south. Should we, imbued with selfishness, now say we are going to elongate the turn of the south? If 4 years is enough to bring our country, Nigeria, to the current parlous state that it is currently, I think that 4 years is also enough to make a fundamental difference. People like the late moral leader of the world, Nelson Mandela, did 4 years and moved on. Mr. Peter Obi can do this.
Honorable Afam Ogene.
Yes.
Tell Nigerians the truth. Can anybody, even Owele, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, if they resurrected and came back, in their genius, can they fix this current Nigeria in 4 years? Be honest.
Okay, I thought we were going to ask if anybody was going to just do 4 years and go. I would have reminded you that even though I've not read it anywhere, a famous nationalist was said to have wished to be president even for one day. Then when you talk about whether Nigeria can be fixed in 4 years, nobody asked that of Nelson Mandela in the transition from the apartheid regime to majority rule. What it takes to fix a country is law and order. Personal example. It's not bricks and mortars that fix a country. If you enthrone law and order in Nigeria today, all other things will fall in place. And it doesn't take an eternity to enthrone law and order.
You know, when Nigerians make these arguments comparing Nigeria with South Africa, you know, I am bemused. And you know why? South Africa is a developed economy, light years ahead of any competitor in Africa, not even Nigeria. For instance, South Africa has 50,000 megawatts of electricity, distributed, guaranteed. I could leave just that alone. Check their financial systems. So comparing South Africa with Nigeria is a complete misnomer. Hold on, sir. The only thing Mandela needed to do in South Africa was to heal the nation. Heal the nation. Simple. And he did that. Sir, Nigeria is under the ground. It's not just that it is completely down. Can I ask you once again, sir, can anybody, any leader, fix this country, the rot of this country in 4 years?
First, I never compared Nigeria and South Africa. I only compared leadership.
Of course.
No, I only compared leadership, and I mentioned the name Nelson Mandela. I didn't even go ahead to talk of Thabo Mbeki. And then I came back to still talk about Peter Obi doing 4 years. Now, even you agree that the rot is not just on the ground, that it is underneath. My question would be, do we reinforce failure? If somebody has tried to get the country up, and by your own admission, the country is not just down, it is underneath, don't you think we have to try something different? And nobody has said that in 4 years all our problems will go away. If you establish law and order, the man alone is taken and is deployed to the purpose for which it has been taken. That's law and order. I'll give you an example. On November 15, 2025, the National Assembly passed, a demand for a loan, 1.15 trillion. And the executive said it was for the payment of local contractors. Between you and I, the local contractors are still carrying more coffins and protesting all over Abuja. So what has happened to that loan? We are doing the costliest project in sub-Saharan Africa, the Coastal Road, never budgeted, didn't go through any competitive bidding. If there were law and order, would that happen? So if you have law and order, a whole lot of things will be fixed. And I told you, through solid personal example, which Mr. Peter Obi displayed in Anambra, this can be done. Anambra used to be a state where everybody was law unto themselves. But when Mr. Peter Obi came in, civility took over. And we are still enjoying from that civility till tomorrow.
Honorable, I'm glad you went there. Where we're going now, I'm glad you went there yourself. So, the role of the National Assembly, constitutionally, that's actually the engine, the heartbeat of any democracy. This 10th Assembly of which you are a member has been described by all of us, including yourself, I know, as a mere rubber stamp, worse than useless. You cannot contest it, it's a fact. Because everything, just like you said now, anything that comes there from the presidency is just, approved, whether it is loans or whatever. Electoral Act was passed, nobody saw it. Now, my question is, and look at what you said now, the role of oversight on the National Assembly is failed, and you're a member of that, body. Why is the National Assembly so ineffectual, so compromised? Why?
Okay. Let me just give you a vivid example. When we came to the 10th House of Representatives, I had a make-up election. So I joined my colleagues about 6 weeks later. I had another election on April 15. The general elections was February 25, yes. And so when they came, Mr. Peter Obi asked them to choose from amongst themselves who will lead them. And 2 returning members, one from 2003 set and another from the 8th Assembly, 2015 to 2019, couldn't agree. And then at some point, he remained stalled. Within a week that I came, my colleagues who had an election, and out of 35 of us, I had 22 votes. One person had about 7 and the other one maybe 5. Now, Mr. Peter Obi could simply have anointed or appointed one person. He didn't do that. In keeping with his nature, he didn't do that. Now you asked about the National Assembly. In one fora, I had stated that the 9th Assembly was described as a rubber stamp. But I'm still finding it difficult to get the right words to describe even the 10th Assembly. I have also been on record as having described it as a parliament of anything goes. Worse than a rubber stamp. But where did we get it wrong? It begins with executive interference. The Constitution in Section 60 says that the House and the Senate shall choose their own leaders from among themselves. Who didn't do that? The executive brought its weight to bear. And so, if you act like a boa constrictor, you conscript the people and everything around them, which was what happened. And if you don't exercise the democratic right of putting your leadership, then it is very difficult calling them to account. That is one. 2, the parliament is a place where the rule of the majority reigns supreme. The minority can only have their say. The majority would always have its way. I, for one, have always had my say. Ditto a few courageous members. But as a bloc, in a situation where opposition figures that are in bed with the ruling party are meant to superintend over the affairs of the opposition, what do you expect from that parliament? And Nigerians, we are all looking. This is not about only us. We are representing you and everybody else. We saw that Kingsley Chinda emerged minority leader of the 10th Assembly, who we all know is a Nwike protege. Only 3 days ago, he went for APC screening for governorship, even still holding the position of minority leader.
On another party's platform?
Eh?
On another party's platform?
PDP. On PDP's platform. If that is not outrageous, I don't know what else. If that is not against the grain of law and order, I don't know what else. Ali Madaki left the NMPP and declared for the APC months back. But at least after some time, he took the honorable route and threw in the towel. My good friend, Dr. Ali Jesse, was minority whip. Only about a week or 2 ago, he crossed over to the APC. So what do you do with that kind of minority death? So it only shows where their physical bodies were and where their minds were all the while.
Now, one of the most egregious failings of the 10th National Assembly, 2 actually. Number 1, as we speak now, we actually do not know which of the budgets from 2024, 2025, 2026, which of them is actually being implemented. apart from non-implementation of the capital aspect of the budget, to the budgets overlapping. This is the first time in our history that we have 3 budgets running concurrently. Can you shed more light on this?
There's no light to shed. It wasn't done in the dark.
It wasn't done in the day.
It wasn't done in the dark. It was done in the full glare of everybody. And even those who didn't have the opportunity of sitting in parliament, either as members or as part of the gallery, got to know the decisions. So what you have just read out is not a failing of the 10th National Assembly. It's a failing of the current administration. Pure and simple. If they can run a thing as simple as a budget, January to December, everybody runs budgets in their own homes. Between a husband and a wife and the children, they make their budget subject to the man's income. He knows what to borrow. He knows what to get from other streams of income and balance out. So for a country that is even you at your level does not know which budget we are running, even some of us are still confused because they have all overlapped. But because of the tyranny of the majority, for them, it is business as usual. But it's left for the Nigerian people, and that's why I told you it's not a Peter Obi headache. It's not an Atiku headache. It is between the administration and the Nigerian people. If they want for us to repeat that, and they have the tax law coming next year, so they should be prepared.
Another aspect of the failure, like I mentioned, 2 major ones, is the humongous loans that have been taken by the federal government on all of our behalf, because it's your children, my grandchildren, and your grandchildren that will pay these loans, you know. How did the National Assembly arrive at the point where a request for loan is submitted in the morning, and by noon, the Senate President reads it around noon, by 2 p.m. or so, it is passed. 2 billion, 1 billion, $3 billion. How did you get it, Honorable?
Well, loans in itself are not bad. It is to what use they are deployed that is the issue. I cited a clear example, except they changed the heading tomorrow. That one was specifically targeted at local contractors. I know that many of them have lost houses. Many of them have lost huge incomes arising from completed jobs that have not been paid for. Again, as part of government, because we have 3 arms of government, so I'm part of government. But I regret to say that these loans, we do not see to what ends they are being put. And if we do not see, that's why we are alerting the people. That's why I'm talking about it. There is nobody, I challenge anybody from the APC to sit before you and talk in the same manner and write the loans. Only on my way here, I saw the headlines. We are negotiating with the World Bank at the 2nd largest loan to be taken. But we also know how much some other countries spend in constructing infrastructure. So why would ours, again, law and order? Personal example.
Finally, let me ask you this one. You may not know, but I would ask you anyway. Mr. Wale, at a session in November, I think last year, the president earlier on in September last year had bragged that, oh, we've met our revenue targets, we have overshot. But Wale came in November at the Appropriations Committee and openly said, no, we are barely making 30% revenue target. Was that the reason why Mr. Wale was sacked as finance minister?
Well, I'm not a member of the kitchen cabinet, but I do know that even we, the opposition caucus, had at the time called for a sack. Because if you cannot meet your obligations and you can't explain why, like you said, Mr. President said the revenue targets have been met. For a budget of, was it 48 trillion or 58 trillion naira? And only the Nigerian Revenue Service had gotten 27 trillion, 5 trillion more than its projected revenue. Not to talk of customs, the NMPC, other revenue-generating agencies. And the president gleefully told us in September that we have met the non-oil revenue targets and surpassed. And then, even if you talk about our oil revenue, we are spending so much protecting pipelines. How come we do not have any major hiccups in oil productions? So why are we not getting value for money? So if you balance what we get plus the loans taken, you will see that we overshot the budget. Yet, the government is still in debt. It is up to the Nigerian people. For me, politics is a contestation of ideas. A lot of people think that we need to engage in browse in the assembly or march on the streets for things to change. And that's the whole beauty of democracy. Every 4 years, you go to renew the mandate. For the presidency, a time tenure of 8 years. But as a political party, even after 8 years, you come to seek the mandate of the people. So if the people are not sufficiently embittered to try something else, it's up to them.
Okay, let's leave that. In one sentence, what is the single biggest threat confronting this country today? In your opinion?
Insecurity.
What's the solution to it?
The solution to it is to make production work in the country. If you are going to use some non-kinetic measures to settle the matter, which some people had advocated, citing the Niger Delta amnesty program, that could be a way. If we are going to go all out because we are in a war situation, then we should not be ashamed to seek external help. Former President Jonathan did it, and at the time was on the way to routing Boko Haram. But today, we are not just confronted with Boko Haram. We have ISWAP, we have ISIS, and different terror groups. And I tell people, the government is helpless because I do not know of one single program or policy that the government has put in place to checkmate. All we wait for is to know how many people were killed in this state or that state, and then we'll offer the usual condolences. And then the interviewer did ask me, were I to be president, what will I do? I said, I don't even need to be president. Were I to be head of the security architecture, of course, the president is the CEC. I told him that from Abuja through Lokoja, then branch off on the way to the southwest, or you are proceeding to Edo Delta, the south, south, and southeast. That kidnapping that used to take place there is something that can be solved. It doesn't require rocket science. Luckily the governors are with him. Even if they are not with him, it's one federation. I called the governors. Between your state on the express, 500 meters inwards, we don't want to see any bush standing. Something must give. Yes, vegetation is good, but life is more important. We don't want to see any tree standing. Because these people just kidnap somebody on the road, and in a second. So even if help comes, you can't trace where they entered. But if you are seeing, they are also human beings, they rationalize. And they see that along that stretch, you can see as far as 500 meters. You think anybody would try kidnap another person there? That is probably why in Kano it's difficult to kidnap flat land.
You know, proponents of environmentalists and biodiversity agitators will
no, when emergencies come, and how many bush exercises have the military conducted around that corridor?
Let me ask you quickly, in less than 2 minutes, if you can do this. Part of your recommendation, you were talking about non-kinetic, and you liken it to the Niger Delta agitators. So this Operation Safe Corridor, this repentant Boko Haram, about 3,000, do you support it?
No, I said some people had suggested. You know, when you want to demobilize, it has to be a complete demobilization. Not pick a few people here, sew uniforms and give to them, and return them back to society. That's not reintegration. That's even empowering them further. The government must think of these amnesty people. They went to diverse trainings so that in the weeks and days and years to come, you could earn a living by yourself. If they don't earn, it's all tied to economy. And from economy, all other factors begin to come to play. The first and foremost is economy. If a man is being paid 500,000 to carry guns and shoot, and they're giving him drugs to be high, he will prefer to do that than staying not knowing where the next meal will come from.
Final question. So we've discussed all this political permutation moving here and there. So as it is now, it is likely shaping up to be a repeat of 2023. That's what we may get in 2027. Even though ADC hasn't done their primaries, but at least we know where Peter Obi and Kwankwaso, they're going to fly together. Tinubu and Kashibu, we don't know anyway, but at least Tinubu is on the ticket. So how do you see that playing out? What do you see?
Well, my advice to the leaders of the coalition, especially of the ADC, is not to behave like jilted lovers. Mr. Peter Obi, I saw where the spokesperson of the ADC, Bolaji Abdullahi, stated that Mr. Peter Obi does not even know the manifesto or something of the party. And I'm like, has any manifesto even been released to Nigerians? They appear to be crying too much over spilled milk. People talk about Mr. Peter Obi leaving parties. Mr. Peter Obi lives anywhere because of problems created by others. On the flip side, on the ADC side, whose arrowhead is former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, they rather create the problem. So I will urge them not to behave like jilted lovers. Mr. Peter Obi still has the highest respect for them as individuals and as an organization, is to think of how well we can come together to save our country. And the coast is still open. There could be collaboration at some point, and when you weigh the, you can get international organizations to conduct polls. And wherever the pendulum is swinging, the other opposition elements could come together and support that candidature to save our country from further rot.
As you sit here, do you think Mr. Peter Obi can garner the votes of Northwest and Northeast in large numbers and Southwest in large numbers?
Even when Mr. Peter Obi was infamously referred to as having only 4 persons tweeting in a room, he, in the minds of millions of Nigerians and the outside world, he won the 2023 elections.
He didn't win 2023 elections.
No, he lost legally, but in the hearts of Nigerians, he won.
Okay.
And if he won at that time in their hearts, how much so now that he has sitting senators, he has sitting House of Representative members, he has sitting State Assembly members, and he has extended the handshake further into the nerve center of the North, the Northwest, by picking a pro-people, working together with a pro-people proponent like Senator Musa Rabiu Kwankwaso. So the election is only for Nigerians to lose. We only pray that that infamous glitch that the country has refused to examine does not rear its head.
The INEC glitch of 2023.
We may not be 2 times lucky.
Well, nice place to anchor. I want to pray, say amen to your prayer that will not experience the glitch again.
Amen.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. My pleasure.